Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to be talking about the life and legacy of a truly unforgettable star, Loni Anderson. So, we're starting this explainer on a somber note. We recently learned the sad news that Loni Anderson, the actress who was just such a huge part of the 1980s, has passed away at the age of 79, just a few days shy of her 80th birthday.
Her family released a statement, and you can just feel the pain in it. They said, "We are heartbroken to announce the passing of our dear wife, mother, and grandmother." It's a reminder that behind the public figure, there's always a real family experiencing a very personal loss.
To really understand her impact, you have to look at the whole story. And for Loni Anderson, that story really kicks into high gear with the one role that made her an absolute legend.
For millions of us, Loni Anderson will always be connected to one of the most beloved sitcoms of that entire era. And this role, it didn't just make her a star. It made her a household name. A defining face of the late 70s and early 80s.
The character was Jennifer Marlowe on WKRP in Cincinnati. And what was so fantastic about her is that she just completely blew up the stereotype. She wasn't the ditzy blonde receptionist. No way. She was empowered, she was brilliant, and honestly, she was usually the smartest person in the room. Her quiet efficiency was basically the only thing keeping that whole chaotic radio station from falling apart. And it wasn't just audiences that fell in love with her. The critics were seriously impressed. Just look at this. She got 2 Emmy nominations and 3 Golden Globe nominations for that role. That's not just popularity. That's some serious critical acclaim for her talent. But as her star got brighter and brighter, her private life became very, very public. And this kicked off a whole new chapter in her life, one that was pretty much defined by camera flashes and screaming tabloid headlines. It really started in 1983. She starred in this movie Stroker Ace, and her co-star was one of the biggest movie stars on the planet at the time, Burt Reynolds. Well, their on-screen chemistry spilled over into real life, they got married, and bam, they instantly became one of the most famous, most followed couples of the entire decade. But here's the thing, there was this huge gap between the public fairy tale and the private reality. Loni herself talked about it later, and you can just feel the exhaustion in her words. She said, "We were just a spectacle all the time. It was hard to have a relationship in that atmosphere." I mean, can you imagine trying to build a real life under that kind of microscope? So, after a really messy and incredibly public divorce, Anderson decided, you know what? It's time to take my story back. And in 1995, she published a very candid autobiography. Her motivation for writing it was so clear and so direct. She said, "I think if you're going to write about yourself, you have to do it warts and all." This wasn't about revenge. It was about telling her truth, the whole truth, even the parts that weren't so glamorous. The book was really her way of defining herself. She even said it was about the growth of a woman who survives. It was her chance to finally step out from behind the headlines and show the world her own strength and her own resilience. But here's the thing. If we only talk about WKRP or the tabloid years, we're missing a huge part of the picture. Loni Anderson's career was incredibly long and full of different kinds of roles. It really shows how dedicated she was to her work. This timeline really puts it all into perspective. I mean, look at this. Her career starts way back in 1966 with a small part in a Steve McQueen movie. Then, of course, the big break with WKRP in 78, the movies in the 80s, her book in 95, and she was still working right up until 2023. That's just an absolutely incredible run.
So, when you pull it all together, you see all the different hats she wore. She was this acclaimed actress, a best-selling author, but also a wife, a mother, and a grandmother. She actually found a very happy private life when she married musician Bob Flick back in 2008, far away from all that Hollywood craziness.
Okay, so what does she leave behind? When we look back on everything, what is the real, lasting legacy of Loni Anderson? Let's just start with this one number, 57. 57 years. That's how long her professional acting career was. To have that kind of staying power in an industry as brutal as Hollywood,
Well, that says everything you need to know about her talent, her drive, and her resilience.
So, in the end, her legacy is so much more than just one TV show. Yes, she was an absolute 80s icon, for sure. But she was also a survivor of a really intense, sometimes cruel tabloid culture. And I think most importantly, she was an artist who fought to tell her own story, in her own words. And that kind of leaves us with a big question to think about, doesn't it? How should we remember our icons? Is it for the characters they played, for the dramatic lives we read about, or is it for the story they themselves finally chose to tell us? Loni Anderson's remarkable life really makes you think about that. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.